Hello, guys, and welcome to the newest episode of the Just Another Castle podcast. With me today, we have just Matt,
Womp womp.
because Flea had to go to his sister's graduation. Screw her. And Mike went to get dinner, and he disappeared. So he'll probably come back soon. So we'll begin, as always, with what we've been playing, and we already started discussing a little bit, but I have been playing number one Majora's Mask, which I have fallen in love with. I'm only a few hours in. I haven't even gotten through the first dungeon yet. I've just been running around, talking to people, doing side stuff, and I think the game is just so fun. It just actually seems like an open world game, because although there's a certain order of the way things need to be done, the sheer number of side quests and side material, not only that, but um, just the way that the schedule works and the way you can keep track of people and finish things in very weird, any sort of order, really. Um, I really like. And so for me, I know a lot of people really like Majora's Mask because of the whole stress aspect. And for me, I'm not really stressed out as much because I just slow down time and I'm kind of going through really slowly. Um, but I'm really enjoying it for the whole kind of like gotta log things in the bomber's notebook, make sure everything's tracking everyone's progress, and that's why I'm really liking it. And of course, the graphics on the 3DS are very, very nice. I'm just really enjoying the world. In fact, I'm liking it more than Ocarina of Time at this point. Um,
Wow.
which, as I said last week or 2 weeks ago, Ocarina of Time is not like in my top four Zelda games, so it's not, but that's just me. And then the other game I was playing was Saints Row 4, not Saints Row the Fourth. Um, and Matt and I were talking a little bit about this one, and I think you and I had kind of different ideas about this because for me, I didn't like the superhero parts. I thought the guy was overpowered, the main character, and I didn't really enjoy it as much. But my favorite parts of Saints Row 4 were the times when they took away the powers and it was just kind of getting really wacky. In one of the levels, you pretty much fight a 50-foot soda can by launching rocket launchers at it, which is kind of amazing if you think about it. So for me, I really enjoyed the crazy stuff about the game. I also really liked the satire of Mass Effect 2. That was
Oh
just
gosh, yeah.
hilarious. I'm not gonna spoil it, but it's really legitimately well done and funny the way they
If you've
parodied.
seen the trailers, you would have seen what it is, but it's pretty
But
funny.
it's not just that; it's also romancing characters. Or it's just
Oh, I thought that's what you were talking about.
oh yeah, well the ship itself and yeah. So
Okay, yeah.
so it's
And
just
then like Nolan North is there.
yeah. Well,
It's like we're gonna have him for no reason.
in the speech at the end of the game, right before you go in the final, it's like very Mass Effect 2 parody-ish. So the game I thought was fun. I picked it up for like $15 or something. So for $15, it's totally, I thought it was worth it. I picked up the order, but I haven't started it yet. I played like 20 minutes of it, but haven't really gotten into it. I've been just concentrating on finishing up Saints Row 4 and getting to Majora's Mask. What about you, Matt?
I was gonna talk about what you were playing.
Oh, yeah.
Uh,
So,
Crap. What was the last thing you
oh,
said
yeah.
about Saints Row 4? Oh yeah, I think I tried to make a Nathan Drake character so I could have Nolan North voice it, but like it took me out of it because I kept just picturing Nolan North instead of actually Drake. I'm like, it's not working for me. I already know the surprise.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that's weird that you don't like the powers as much because I played Saints Row 3 and I loved it. And Saints Row 4, I think, as most people know, is basically just an expansion that they didn't really get to do with 3 because of I forget the company that was closing or whatnot.
Yeah, THQ went bankrupt.
Yeah, so they got screwed over with that. Kind of had to repurpose that whole game to make 4. So that's why I think I like the powers more than you because without the powers, it's basically just Saints Row 3 again.
And to be fair, I totally would love that. They did Saints Row 3
But I mean,
too.
it's almost one for one the same. Like with the missions and just the world itself looks the same.
Oh yeah, I mean, I had problems with the world. I really didn't like the way the world. It was just dark and dreary, And for me, Saints Row 3 had so much life in the way that it was just so wacky in its design. And like the automobiles, you drive the Genki mobile, whatever, which is the
Yeah,
car that uses people as live ammunition, and you would run over people and then shoot them out of the cannon. And that was
yeah,
just so amazing for me. That Saints Row 4 flat a little flat in its goofiness. Some of the dialogue was funny, and it was just kind of stupid the way they'd be talking, but it didn't do it for me on the same level as Saints Row 3 did. And so for me, my favorite missions were the ones where they took away the superpowers, and it was kind of just
yeah.
silliness.
Like
Um,
jumping in front of cars to get money.
yeah, and I mean, to me, it seemed like the superhero missions, it's supposed to be something that's over the head, ridiculous. But for me, those were the most serious levels where you're fighting aliens, and you're jumping around and running super fast. But for me, those seemed like the most structured missions as opposed to the ones where it's just craziness. And as I said, fighting the giant soda can,
Yeah,
um, or the oh my god, or the 8-bit level where you fight it. What you
like
call it?
tanks and stuff.
Well, yeah, the tanks one, or the one where it's the arcade, what's called urban champion or something like that. The fighting one. Oh my
Oh,
god,
I forget.
the 2D one. Anyway, they made like a whole 8-bit fighting game. Like that was awesome too.
Yeah,
So,
I think the
oh, it was
toilet
Streets
one
of
was in.
Rage.
Oh, uh,
It was
was it
Streets.
was the toilet one the one that was in three? I forget.
Which one was the toilet one again?
I forget. They at one point you're in like an arcade game and everything's kind of like pixel-ish,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah,
then
yeah. That was
they
the.
like keep changing your character like every 10 minutes. And one point you turn into like a toilet.
I think
You
it was
can't
in
do
both.
anything.
I think it was in 3, but then I remember them in the fourth one making a joke about it,
Yeah,
and they turned him into a toilet for a little bit too. Yeah, I mean that craziness is what I love about Saints Row.
yeah,
That's where it makes itself different from GTA,
yeah,
and of course Aliens is completely ridiculous, but I didn't have the same feel of ridiculousness to it.
yeah. I also confession. I love like if I had a superpower, I would have like super speed or flying. So when I have the ability to finally have the ability to do that in a game, I love it because there's not many games you can really do that, or at least string it along as easily as you can in there. Where you like run up a building and you jump off and you like parachute and then you crash and do all that. So that's what I really love about it. Kind of like Spider-Man, actually. That's one thing I like about Spider-Man, like just swinging to the next objective
Yeah.
because you feel like a part of it. Um, with Majora's Mask, did you like? I know you liked the organization of the side quests, but did you like doing the side quests themselves?
Yeah, I
What
mean,
happens in them? Because I forget what you do besides talking to people and having
well,
weird
there's
dialogue.
a nice little diversity, and for some of this stuff, I'm kind of like peeking at a guide because I'm a noob. Um, but like I like the fact that they're kind of like mini bosses scattered around,
Yeah,
in terms of just like large creatures that you have to fight, just in random places of the world, which I think is really cool and kind of reminds me of something that would be in an open world game, if there was one.
yeah,
And then as for the side quests themselves, it's kind of just clever how some of them are designed in the way that, you'll be walking around in the middle of the night and randomly you see a thief just, steal goods from someone, which is just completely coincidental. Um, so I think that's cool too. And that's kind of why I like it. It's just these things that you figure out, not necessarily because they're there, but because you're just wandering around talking to people, and it just so happens that they have a mission for you that happens to take place at this point in time.
yeah.
So
I think there's some cool things from Majora's Mask that could transfer over into the Wii U version. Like you said, like events happening without you really being a part of it, and then you interject yourself.
yeah, I mean that's the
Like
characteristic
because
of
it sounds because it builds up a world, right? Because there's things existing without.
without you necessarily being there. Exactly.
Yeah,
And that's kind of one of the characteristics of an open world. In Skyrim, you're going, or you're walking around, people are just their daily lives, regardless of whether you're there or not. So
and I'm not sure if you played Watch Dogs, but I know they did that too.
I played Watch Dogs. I don't remember that happening 100%.
I just remember them showing like this guy can mug someone, and then you see them, and then you can chase after them and like start that mission to an extent.
Oh, well, there were some things. Yeah. There were some things thrown in and some multiplayer aspects too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I kind of like turned that off and I kind of concentrated on just the missions.
Mhm.
But yeah, what about you, Matt? What have you been playing?
I haven't been able to play too much, but I did play Gunman Clive because I got it in the Nintendo Humble Indie Bundle thing.
Hmm.
It doesn't take too long. It says I clocked in an hour, but from not commuting, I was on just playing it on like rides and whatnot. So I think it took 2 hours, and it just logs in how long like you spent actually beating the level, like completing it properly. Um, it's it's okay. It's not terrible. I think it only goes for like $2 or $3 on these shops, so it's not like you're burning your
Yeah,
wallet or
it's
anything.
$2. It's $1.99, and then the sequel is like $2.99.
Yeah,
So
and then they're making like a collection for the Wii U with both of them in for I don't know how much money. But basically, if you suck at Mega Man, but you still like the mechanics of Mega Man, you might want to get Gunman Clive because it's not like it's not a watered down version of Mega Man, but it's definitely an easier version. There's still some hard stuff to do, but nothing as hard as an actual Mega Man. But
man,
it's cool. You can start off with two different characters. So you have Clive, um, which is basically what Mega Man would do, just jump and shoot and all that. And then you have the female character, I forget her name, but she's in like this droopy, westernized, like 1800s dress. And you have like peach abilities, so you can float in the air, like stay there if you want. But the trade-off with her is you can float in the air and hold your position there for a few seconds, but you can't actually run and shoot. So once you start shooting, it's like Resident Evil. You just stop your spot. So
mm,
that adds something to it. I haven't really tried that much. I didn't even know there's a difference until I beat it and tried it. And then once you do beat the game, you get a third playable character, which is a duck, and it doesn't shoot at all. You just like jump a few times, like flutter. So in Smash Bros, let's say you're playing Pit, and you have like a couple of jumps. The first one's like the biggest jump, and then the others like 3 or 4 more like little jumps. You basically do that and have to avoid like all the enemies at all costs by flying over them and not getting killed, which is pretty cool. So if you liked it the first time, then like that'll add some more challenge to it.
yeah, I also really like Gunman Clive when I played it. Um, it's it's one of those I actually never thought of it like Mega Man for some reason didn't occur to me. Um, but the way you describe it sounds good and exactly correct. The second game I feel is actually a lot more challenging than the first one. The boss battles in particular will have multiple stages, and one of my gripes actually with the second one is that um, a boss could have 2, 3 stages and it won't let you say it won't give you a checkpoint in the middle,
Oh yeah,
which can be a little frustrating for people. Um, but I still like the fact that you learn to play it well.
yeah,
Like it's not cheap, but you learn how to play it.
yeah. You have to learn like the patterns of the whole stage, and the stages aren't excessively long. Like if you once you end up actually beating it, like a stage, it's only like a minute. So they're fairly. So if you get killed enough to go to the start, it's not like a huge pain because it's only realistically takes a minute. So it's not too bad if you die, but you can hop right back into it.
Yeah, yeah, and that's kind of why I think it's good for, as you said, like a train,
Yeah,
like for a commute, or even say right before you're going to bed, you just pop it out, get a stage or two done, you go to bed. So, what about anything else, or just Gunman Clive?
no, that's pretty much it.
All right, cool. Well, I mean, I think that's a really excellent game. People haven't checked it out yet. For $2, it's that. Would you recommend it?
Um, I mean, you can't really go wrong when it's like $2 because once you get to a certain price, it's like, can you really complain about it? Like if something's $5 and you're not super happy about it, it's like, are you really gonna get cheesed off after $5?
Yeah, and I mean it's a decent. I mean it'll give you like 2 hours of playtime for $2, which I think is ideal.
Yeah,
All right.
That's fair enough.
So I think we can move on to some news. And you, of course, thanks, Matt, sent me all of this news here. We'll begin with Amiibo, as we always do. So, a few pieces of news. Number one, Dark Pit is exclusive to Best Buy. He'll be releasing on the 31st, which sucks for me because I leave the day before to go to Europe. So, I don't know what to do. I'll probably end up having to buy them online.
Yeah.
Both
Oh
Dark.
yeah, and you can't pre-order anymore, right?
No, yeah, they're not doing
Like
pre-orders.
no stores are doing pre-orders, I think.
Yeah, and then Palatine is on the same day,
Yeah,
also the 31st of July. Some people think she might be a Target exclusive, but we don't really know. If she's a Target exclusive, I think they'll both have enough of them to where they're not going to be super expensive. Like I think I'll probably get
yeah.
them for $25 each or $20 on eBay. I don't think it's going to be a huge deal.
The weird thing though is that they're only releasing like two, let's say, at this date, and then it's for the next actual wave. It's not for a couple of months. So why the heck are they even exclusive to begin with?
Yeah, and
It's
that
not
doesn't
like
make
you have to sift through like, oh, there's 500,000 amiibo that you can go after. It's like, no, there's literally two different ones, and now at least one of them's going to be another store for reasons.
Yeah, and one of the weird things about that is the fact that you know, I understand why they would maybe split this up into releases of two amiibo at a time, and it would because there'd be more amiibo,
Mm-hmm.
they'd be able to produce more because they're scattering
Yeah,
the releases.
yeah,
However, you've got two releasing July 31st, and then you've got like 12 releasing in September. So I
yeah.
really don't understand that. September is literally going to be hell on earth for amiibo collectors because I'm gonna be ditching class, to go and find these amiibo. Um, I don't know what they're thinking, and then
Because some of them line up with actual games, right? So I guess they can't help it too much if they want it there at the launch day of the game,
yeah,
right? I don't know.
yeah. Well, and I,
Well,
I
oh
guess
wait, no, because Yoshi's Woolly World comes out October, and then Chibi Robo comes out
I probably also
September.
October, but we don't
Yeah,
know
and
for
then the
sure.
rest of them are all Smash Bros. People, so
Yeah,
they
but
can easily
Smash Bros
split
has a
those
bunch
up.
of them. You got the three Mii fighters.
Yeah.
Then you got that whole wave. Plus, that's the month that the Mario 30th anniversary amiibo comes out.
Yeah, September.
Yeah, and then November is the Animal Crossing one.
Yeah.
So,
No, I don't care about
well, I
that.
care about them. Well, not the cards. I care about the figures.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's gonna suck. Quite honestly, and although Nintendo is doing a little bit better about stock, I think every single amiibo at this point, except for Little Mac, could be found online for less than $30, a US version. So that's pretty good. So at this point, they're attainable. They're not like $100.
Yeah.
Um,
It's still dumb. They should separate like the release. Obviously, they can't do too much if they want it to launch alongside a game, which understandable. But like, come on, you could have released a couple of the Smash Bros. Ones across summer rather
yeah,
than here's two and then wait 6 months and then you have 12 to choose
yeah,
from. Well, because like you said, if they released it sparingly over a wider time frame, like they could probably sell more because they could make more units of each one, and then whoever wants them just gets them there rather than, oh well, there's 12 out now and I only have so much money so I can only buy these ones, skip out on those.
yeah. That's true. But I forgot what I was gonna say. Oh my god. Yeah, I mean that's true. I think it would be better if they scattered them out a little more, instead of just having release dates where a bunch of them come out. Um, oh yeah, the other thing I wanted to say is GameStop is actually getting restock of Amiibo, and Nintendo's a little better about this. First of all, Wii Fit Trainer's getting restocked at Best Buys all over, so check your Best Buys. GameStop is getting restocks of NES and what was the other one? And DDD. And
Nice.
we were hearing that some GameStops were getting up to 6 to 8 Nesses, which is a lot, considering that on day one most of them only got one or two.
Holy shoot,
So yeah,
that's stupid.
and there's 6,000 GameStops in the U.S. So if each one's getting 8 of them, that's another 50,000 NES amiibo. So that's a good restock. It's
Yeah.
not like the 2,000 Marths that we got. So I think
The one you had to wait like 6 months for them to reprint it.
yeah, yeah. So honestly, I think that Nintendo's getting a little better about this whole ordeal. They're printing a little more often, a little more with a little more regularity and in higher quantities. Um, so that's good. The one thing I think the Yoshi amiibo is probably gonna end up being around $20 instead of 13,
Yeah.
which slightly pisses me off because that means that if I want all three Yoshi amiibo, I'm gonna end up spending just as much as the game itself. Whoops.
Yeah. It's weird because they're making me spend money, but not in the way they want. It's like, okay, I'll give you money, Nintendo, but it's through Amiibo and not the actual games.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna use these amiibo. I'm just gonna like leave them.
No, I have a desk and I just ordered them up, like just so I can look at them.
Man, but I mean they're cool to look at. All right, so I want to get to the biggest rumor here, the one that
Yeah.
we're talking about. And it's about the Nintendo NX, and there's a lot of stuff here. Number one is that the NX would launch in next summer. Production, I think, would start springtime or October, or even I forgot exactly what the rumor said. Oh yeah, October. Production would start in October. It would launch next July. It would be let me pull up this full rumor. But so it would launch. They expect to sell 20 million units in the span of 1 year, which is kind of huge. I can't understand how anyone could expect to sell 20 million.
Didn't the PS4 sell like 20 million in the first year or something?
I don't think it was 20, but it was close
I remember
because
hearing 20 at some point.
right
I don't
now
know
I
when.
think it's at 23 million. And it's been what,
Okay.
a year and a half.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I mean it was close. I think it was like 18 million or something. But
Okay.
that's the PS4.
Yeah.
And so I don't remember if there was anything about power here.
No, I
Uh,
think that's in the other one.
oh yeah, so there was another rumor which was a little more credible about.
Oh, I was gonna say the reason this one that says launch in July seems fake is because they just recently said they don't launch games in They don't launch games in the summer because basically no one buys them, which is what every developer says. But then somehow they would release a console. Then that doesn't make sense.
Well, I took issue with this. I took issue with the statement from Nintendo itself because they said that 60% of their sales happen within like 2 months, happen between October and
Yeah,
November, and they're like, well, and that's because people tend to buy in the holiday. But I took that a little. I thought it was like a self-fulfilling prophecy because, of course, when you launch
yeah.
Smash,
When the only
Bayonetta,
games you have are in those 2 months.
yeah, of course, when you sell Smash, Bayonetta, and Pokemon within the span of 2 months, they're going to sell more than most of your titles for the rest of the year because those are your biggest hitters.
Yeah,
That makes perfect sense. Maybe if you actually release games in the summer, which they don't do,
no
then
one does really.
then the
So
ratio would change a little bit. I mean, for heaven's sake, they literally not a single first party release in the North America between June and August. The first one's coming in September, unless Devil's Third ends up coming out in August, which we'll talk about a little later. So that's terrible. That is shameful.
the
Um,
only games that ever get released during the summer are in the month of June around E3 or in August. That's it. It's like you want a summer game, we'll give it to you at August at the very end of summer. We're like, we hate you.
yeah, but I mean, they
We know
didn't.
it's summer and we're supposed to go inside, but we want some games to play in summer.
Yeah, but their summer, I mean, their June games that they launch usually do very well. I mean, just look at Tomodachi Life and Animal Crossing. Both launched like the week of
Oh
E3.
yeah,
Both did incredibly well.
yeah.
So I think there's a history there, and I think a game launched in July a year or two ago that I can't remember off the top of my head that did
I know
okay.
Dream Team launched it like the beginning of
Oh
August.
yeah, 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 that
That's
was an
all I
August
remember.
game. So there's
That was
definitely
cool because they like showed it off at E3 and they're like, yeah, it comes like next month. It's like,
yeah,
yay.
there's definitely a history of it.
Yeah.
Um,
And
so
one last thing before you move on to the second part of it was one person says they think this launch in July is the quality of life platform, which would be interesting because no one has talked about that, even Nintendo lately. So I wonder when, because I think the person wrote like it's supposed to come out in 2016, and there hasn't been any news on it.
yeah, so we heard so the one thing we did hear about quality of life is that they're creating some sort of sleep device.
Oh yeah,
If you
for
That was
that.
a long time ago. That was probably like almost a year ago.
Yeah,
Um, when that came out. I think it was last August or something. Where there was a little video about a sleep device. I don't know if they're still sticking to that or if there's multiple products in their quality of life platform or what. Um, but yeah, if that launched next year, that would make some sense. First of all, their DNA stuff is launching this fall. We already know.
yeah,
First of all, they announced Pokemon Shuffle, which we don't know if that's their DNA game or not, that they promised. But their loyalty program once again, Wada pointed out that will be this year. So I think they're getting to a point where they're turning the company and getting ready for it. Also, if you remember, Iwata talked about the fact that they planned out Nintendo at, quote, Nintendo-like profits in their 2017 fiscal year.
yeah,
So, if they were to launch Quality of Life next year and release a console next year, that would probably lead to Nintendo-like profits. Um, so,
the one last thing
yeah.
was it would be interesting. Like I think that rumor is fake for the most part, but the interesting thing would be if they did launch it in July. That means they would show it off in June and be like, it comes out next month, and pull an Apple, be like, oh my gosh, everyone
Well,
gets excited, and maybe
to,
I don't know.
that
That
might not
that seems way too
necessarily
close.
that may not necessarily be true, just because they never specifically said they'd show it at next year's E3. They said we'll talk about it more next year. So if they say, for example, they close out this year, they still have Wii U games for the end of this year. They've got Shin Megami Tensei X Fire Emblem for the beginning of next year, and then that's pretty much it. I don't think they have anything else for the Wii U. Past like February 2016. So if they had an event in February, for example, revealing this thing, and then building up hype, having it playable at E3 in June, they could feasibly launch in July. I think that's possible.
Yeah,
And building up a lot of press coverage around E3
yeah,
for a launch that next month. I think that's possible.
yeah.
But
And that's the only thing that makes me think there's like a sliver of truth, like just pulling an Apple and being like, it's here next month.
however,
Getting from that, but I don't know.
if Nintendo seriously expects to sell 20 million in their first year, I think they're delusional.
Yeah, they're on crack. They're with the Wii U being such a bomb, they shouldn't really be aiming that high. They had to reevaluate their sales before too, and then didn't even make that, from what I recall.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
don't put the cart before the horse.
Yeah, keep expectations low. Just expect your profit to come from DNA or whatever, or Amiibo, you know? And it's okay, you can have a little bit lower expectations, because then when you beat those expectations, you have a little bit of momentum, as
Yeah,
opposed to failing. So the other rumor that came out about the NX came from a Twitter guy from Unseen64. So he usually is very credible. Like, most of
yeah,
his stuff is on. I mean, he does have some misses, but most of his information is spot on because he has a lot of really good contacts. And he said that his contacts said that the new Nintendo console would not compete with the PS4 and Xbox One on a power level. Um, Now, I really hope this is not true, but I kind of like, I think the rumor is credible, and it has some credibility attached to it. Matt, what do you think? Because like the comment section was filled with people being like, I don't care, you know. So what if it's not as powerful as the PS4? But for me, like, sure, personally, I would not care if the NX is not as powerful as the PS4. But that would mean that third parties are going to ditch the NX again, unless it's like small Android games or something, and that ends up being true. But who knows?
no
Uh,
one wants a bunch of Android games just
yeah,
letting the
we
eShop.
want third party games, but if it's weaker, they're probably not going to have third party games. And B, people are going to be like, oh, this is another Wii again that's not as powerful. Like, we already tried that. The Wii was great games. I'm happy I bought a Wii U. We already tried that. We went down that road. It did not work. Time to try something different. So I don't think a platform that is weaker than the PS4 and Xbox One, unless it is like $150 and super cheap and super affordable, I don't think that's going to work for them. So, I don't know, Matt.
So
What do you
sorry.
think?
Okay, yeah. I wrote a bunch of things, but I'll read them verbatim. But before that, the people who are saying like, "Oh, I don't care if it has third parties or whatever," I get they don't care, but at the same time, you're honestly stupid to think that it doesn't matter because Nintendo can't support a system themselves. And that's why there's third parties. And even if you don't want the third parties, there's bound to be something there you're going to like in between all those big exclusives. Because what happens is what we have now, where Nintendo's like, okay, well, we can't pump a game out every month because that's insane. So you have to have like a game now and then wait a couple of months and then have something else and then wait who knows how long and then show like games 3 years in advance. You liar, Reggie. And then wait for those to eventually come out. Like they just can't support it themselves, but they can't even support two devices at once. Like a bunch of people on IGN were saying, like you either have a good handheld year or a good console year. You can't have both because Nintendo just can't do it. And expecting Nintendo to be able to support like one console all themselves for long enough is just ridiculous.
Yeah, it's kind of ludicrous to think that they can do it all on their own. And the reality of the fact is that the other first parties are catching up. Before Nintendo would just have a huge lead on first party, especially at the beginning of PS4 and Xbox One life cycle. But the fact is that the Xbox One, for example, has an excellent catalog in the next 12 months. Like, I was listening to the latest podcast Unlocked, and they counted 9 big, important exclusive titles coming to the Xbox One in 2016. 9. That's probably as many as the Wii U has this year. And they're going to sell more. They're going to attract more attention. And it just kind of sucks because, and that's not even everything they've announced yet. They're probably going to announce another game or two. So Nintendo is no longer the one that has all the first party games that's way stronger catalog than the other companies. Because sure, I mean, I think Nintendo makes the best games. Sure, I think their first party games would beat out Microsoft's any day of the week. But from a pure quantity standpoint, which is what a lot of people really look at, unfortunately, Microsoft is starting to match them. And, I don't think Sony has nearly as strong as of a first-party lineup in terms of quantity, but from quality standpoint, when you've got stuff like Uncharted and whatchamacallit, The Last Guardian that hit at this year's E3, which just blew people away, they're garnering way more attention. And so you need to have those third parties there. Otherwise, you just look like a platform. NX will probably launch with Metroid and Zelda and Mario.
Sure.
Pretty much, and maybe something else that we don't know about yet because Retro is probably has a second team. So who knows?
And then how many of those are going to get delayed from the release date to the window release to like 6 months later? And after that, how many other games are coming? And then will be a dry period, and Nintendo will be like, "Oh, we're sorry," even though we said we learned like the last 12 generations.
Yeah,
and I mean, just have another dry spell for like years again. It's like we're doing the same motions over.
Yeah, and let's say
I don't know how people don't pick up on that.
Yeah, let's say at launch, NX actually does release the big 3, Mario, Zelda, and they have a Metroid game. That would be phenomenal for a launch. That would be amazing. But then all those teams need a restart. They need to go back and start making new games, which means none of those teams will have anything for at least another 2 years. Monolith Soft is about to release Xenoblade Chronicles X, so they're not working on anything. You might have a 3DS title or two, we don't know. But on the big game front, they will be pretty much shooting out all their guns, and then there will be a reset time of 2 years before they have new games ready.
Like you're not gonna get Smash Bros or Mario Kart anytime soon because we just got them, or a bunch of the other ones. So your main series are gonna be out. Like you won't be able to have new ones for a while, and then what the heck do you fill it with?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think we're on the same page on this one. Because, I mean, I get it. Maybe if the console is weaker than the PS4 and Xbox One and they launch it like $149.99, maybe that's how they're expecting to sell 20 million units, is by making it dirt cheap and just being like, well, you can play Zelda on it. No. I mean, I understand that. I still don't know if it'd be a hit. I still don't know. But I think that's a little more sound of a strategy
Yeah,
than just releasing a weak console and pricing it at $400. But, man, I really thought that, they're saying NX is a brand new concept, but I don't know how many brand new concepts there are left at this point.
yeah.
Um,
I want to say something after you.
yeah, go ahead. I'm done.
Yeah. So before that, I have to say I hate. There's not everyone, but there's at least a group of people who are like, oh my gosh, there's a different console. I hate it because I'm I don't know, petty about everything because my thing has to be the best. And then they're like, oh, third parties, they're such garbage, blah, we don't need them because they can't get any themselves. But to say that all third party games are just like, here's a new Assassin's Creed, here's a new Call of Duty, like every year, you're on crack. Like, Microsoft is getting developers to make new games. Sony is, like, buys other studios to make new games. Like, I was never really interested in Killzone or Guerrilla Games or whatever they're called, because they were just making Killzone, and I figured that's all they would do, and like, whatever, I don't care about them. But Horizon New Dawn was like my E3 game in the show. I'm like, oh my gosh, this looks amazing. I never would have expected it to like be made, especially by them, because I thought they'd be a one-note studio, but they did, and like you can't just write third parties off as just they do the same crap over and over again, because they don't. Unfortunately, Nintendo does, and that's all they can really rest their laurels on.
And
whereas once you have third parties, they can do what the heck they want and fill the void between those big titles with something different.
yeah, and there are some smaller things too. I think Nintendo should look into, like for example, purchasing Platinum Games, and this has been talked about for a while. And for a little while, people were like, no, they don't need to purchase Platinum Games. They're good. They're good friends with them. We already got Bayonetta 2, and we got Wonderful 101, and then they announced Scalebound, and I'm just thinking, man. Obviously, Platinum wanted to make this, and they approached someone to fund it or something like that. And I can't imagine how much of Platinum's just pumping out games. They're great. I mean, they've got Star Fox they're helping out with. They got the new Transformers game that they're making. Who knows if it's going to be good or not. Then they've got this huge project Scalebound. So they're multitasking. They're putting stuff together quick. They made Star Fox in pretty much a year, which is really amazing to think about. Like, why hasn't Nintendo picked them up yet? That would be such an amazing asset to have. They've got billions in the bank.
That's a problem with not having enough power, because if a developer says, hey, we want to do this, and they had a partnership, well, now they can't do anything about that, because their hardware can't provide that experience for them. So they say, okay, we either have to go to someone else or not make it at all.
Yeah, it's all related, and sometimes it annoys me, when these people. I mean, we wrote up the news piece about the NX not being as powerful as the PS4, or whatever. Nintendo Enthusiasts got about 200 comments, and I'd probably say 75% of them were like, "Oh, this doesn't matter," and it just infuriates me. Like, yes, Nintendo is a hardcore audience. No matter what they put out, that system will probably sell 10 million units. But is that really what we're looking for here? And a good example of that is when Microsoft came out and announced backwards compatibility. And a lot of people said, well, it's too late in the generation. I'm just thinking, what are you talking about? The 360
we just started.
Yeah, the 360 sold 80 million units. The Xbox One has sold 10 million units. That means there are at least 70 million people that own a 360 but not an Xbox One and are looking to upgrade. So, I mean, there are all these factors that people are just not considering that are very, very relevant to a console's success. So, yeah, I mean, that's enough of my raging.
Okay, I'll go on one little soapbox and then it'll be done. Just because I wrote something, I thought of something and wrote it out, and then it's
go right ahead.
Yeah, so I'll just read it verbatim because whatever is quicker. If this is true that there is going to be a less powerful console, this is going to be terrible because the last two innovations, quote unquote, that Nintendo put on their consoles didn't sell the system at all. They put 3D in the 3DS, that didn't sell the system. And they put the gamepad in the Wii U, and that certainly didn't sell the system.
Mm-hmm.
So as cool as it is to put, these different technologies in their systems, basing your whole structure around that is really stupid because you're going to just lose developers in the long run. If you can incorporate something cool that doesn't hinder a developer's way of creating a game, or they're forced to use it because it would look stupid if you had a blank bottom screen, then fine. But don't do anything to the detriment of them, because you've already done it multiple times, and it clearly hasn't done anything well for you. You had to cut the 3DS's price by like a third just so people would pick it up. That's not a good strategy.
Man, and that is such an amazing point, Matt. The fact that you just brought up, which I hadn't really thought about, but the fact that nobody, well, not nobody, but 90% of the people that bought a 3DS, it was not because of the 3D, and 90% of the people that bought the Wii U was not because of the gamepad, if not more, probably like 95%. So I think that's really quite an excellent point, Matt.
Thanks. And they haven't even bothered to show why those devices need those technologies. They're basically like, this is a cool idea we thought of. Hopefully someone will figure it out, but it won't be us.
Yeah.
Like, they didn't do anything. Super Mario 3D World, or whatever the heck it was on the 3DS, didn't really need 3D. Like, it didn't need it for you to be able to play that game well. And then the gamepad, we still haven't found really, like, Pikmin 3 was great with it, but you didn't need to make a whole system based around it just for that one game.
But asymmetric multiplayer, Matt.
Nintendo Land doesn't cut it.
Yeah, well, Nintendo Land is fun, but it's not worth creating a system over. Well, I think one of the positive signs is the fact that Miyamoto said, we talked about this last week, I think, that he's stepping out of hardware to work more on software. So that might be good. Maybe he's not going to be like, all right, I have an idea, let's put a ball on a stick, squish the ball. It's our new game. Who knows? All right. Some other news here that Matt put together. Nintendo mobile games will be mainly free to start, which is the term they're using instead of free to play. Makes sense. Spiritual successor to Mega Man Legends, made by Inafune and Concept, and the Studio 4C, which made Catherine Asura's Wrath. It has gone to Kickstarter, but there's not nearly as much enthusiasm about this Kickstarter as some of these other big Kickstarters, because I don't know if it's even met its goal yet.
Is it on Kickstarter yet? Because they only had like a reveal trailer.
Yeah, no, it's already on Kickstarter. It's been on Kickstarter for a few days now.
Okay, I guess that was gone then.
Yeah, and it's not doing as well as I think they thought it would.
No.
Let me just
I'm
pull
watching
it up
now.
again.
It says 63,000 out of 150,000. So it's basically just over a third. And it says it was launched like 14 hours ago.
Oh, yeah. So I think, it's going to meet its goal, but it doesn't seem like there's nearly as much. Oh, no, so you're looking at the wrong one. You're looking at the TV show. There was a TV show and
okay, now I hate
game.
them even more.
So you're looking at the TV show. The game, which was launched, so the Kickstarter came out 3 days ago. In 3 days, they have raised $275,000. Their goal is $800,000. So they are...
So it's about the same thing, like a third.
Yeah, like a third.
Last, day.
And pretty much almost exactly a third. And so this does not have nearly the same momentum as some of these other games had. And I think one of those reasons is because Mighty Number 9 has not come out yet. That doesn't come out until September, and I feel like people are like, well, we want to first see how this first Kickstarter game goes before we back something else. And just, it doesn't look as Mega Man Legends-y as Mighty Number 9 looks like Mega Man.
Yeah, it's... When I saw that, because I signed up for the Kickstarter, I put in like $5 or whatever for Mighty Number 9 just so I could vote on polls. But when I saw that, like, here's a surprise teaser trailer, I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, the stinking Mighty Number 9 doesn't launch until October, and we know they need, like, a month or two to prep the physical versions, but, like, okay, I don't care if you have to work on something beforehand, because we already know studios need to start working on something.
Yeah, and I mean,
or the next project.
Mighty Number
So
Nine is
fine,
pretty
but
much
don't
done.
yeah,
So
but don't show us this when we still haven't gotten the game. And honestly, it seems kind of sleazy.
absolutely.
Like you haven't even made money from the first one. You're like, yeah, we still want more of your money. It's like, no, yeah, I don't know. Like I kind of think they should be using the money they get from Mighty Number Nine, like the
Yeah,
extra sales, to fund this rather than we're gonna fund every game on Kickstarter and you're gonna pay for it. It's like, no, screw off.
yeah, and not only that, but they have a publisher. Like Deep Silver
Yeah,
is publishing Mighty Number Nine. So, why don't they ask them for like, oh, we need to work on this new game for 3 months. Could we have $1 million to start development and then we'll kickstart it after Mighty Number Nine's been successful? Like, I don't get it. Or like if we don't make enough money for Mighty Number Nine.
yeah. The other reason why I can see people aren't as interested is because with Mega Man Legends, it was part of a series. So obviously, Mega Man Legends 3 was canceled, but that was the third one in the series. So people wanted to see that story wrapped up because apparently he was in space or something, and the program was like, get Mega Man out of space or whatever. So they wanted to see the end of that story. With this new relaunch, it's like you're not really finishing the story. You're kind of starting something else, and that's not exactly what people wanted from that. They
yeah.
want they wanted to close the books on the other one.
Mm.
And then the fact that there's an animation Kickstarter, I just hate them even more now. Like, okay, so Kamiya was saying, Hideki Kamiya, who made Bayonetta, Wonderful 101 and all that, he was like, whatchamacallit, KJ Inafune isn't an artist, he's a businessman. And I'm like, I don't know if I trust you because Kamiya is kind of a dick on Twitter.
Yeah, he is.
So I'm not really willing to trust him, but after seeing this, it's like, okay, I think he has some points because, like, you haven't even finished the first game, and now you're launching a second game, and now you're launching the second game's, like, TV show. Like, you're just money hungry. It's ridiculous.
Mm.
And they did the same with Mighty Number 9, too. They're like, here's a teaser for a show. It's like, we were halfway into the development of the game, and you're showing us this? Like, no. I don't care if that TV studio made a spot for you to see if you were interested. I don't want to see it because it shows that you're not really committed to your original project and that you just want to milk this for all it's worth, which seems like what he's doing.
Yeah, it just, I really don't like it, I understand to an extent that this game might need to be kickstarted, but I feel like it's not the time.
Yeah.
Alright, well, let's move on to some of this other stuff. Some quick news. Zero Escape Volume 3 is coming to North America first half 2016, Japan this fall. It was announced to a complete surprise at an anime panel. People really like that series, and I think it does well for what it is.
Yeah, Mike likes it, which is weird because it's all about reading.
Yeah. Let's see what else. Bill Trent here will be participating in Smash Bros. At EVO. Hopefully, plays a little bit better than Reggie did at the Nintendo World Championships. Renegade Kid Zeo Drifter is confirmed for cross-buy, which is awesome. I really like that. I've got the game on PC. I've yet to try it out, but I really like the fact that they're starting to embrace a little more cross-buy, with Nintendo actually allowing indie developers to do it.
Yeah. That's why I put it, because it's like, okay, more people are doing cross-buy, that's nice.
Mm-hmm. Funny that Sony came up with that term, and now this is the common term. Tower control mode has been added to Splatoon. I haven't played Splatoon in like 3 weeks, so I missed the last 2 maps and the new mode. Have you tried it out, Matt, by any chance? Oh, no, you don't own Splatoon. I think it's about time to pick that game up. I think at this point
I'm waiting for my birthday so I can get it. It'll be good, though, when I get it, because they'll have a bunch of content in there, so I won't really feel kind of ripped off as other people.
Yeah, for me, man, I think that game at this point, with all the new content, for me, it was like an 8.5 when it launched. I think now it's like a 9. That game is so good. And, it sold 1 million units. We talked about that. One of the big news from this week is that Iwata came out and said that they didn't expect this sort of success. And I kind of, a lot of times I see that, like, it blew past all of our expectations,
Yeah.
But this
One
time,
sale.
it actually seems legitimate because since the game was out of stock in Japan for 3 weeks straight, and the numbers are coming out of Japan, and each week that game is still selling 40,000 units, and it's been out for 4 weeks, and it's still selling like 40,000 units physically, and it's already reached like 400,000 in sales in Japan, which is amazing for a Wii U game. That's a
I
new
think I
IP.
just read a chart saying it's the best-selling Wii U game,
It's the
or something
best-selling
to that
Wii
extent.
digital game.
Oh, that's what it was, right?
Yeah, so man, I think it is completely 100% true that this game has kind of stunned Nintendo, and I'm sure that they, once the summer is over and all that DLC launches, I'm sure they'll be working on a sequel as soon as possible. And that game was also made in a little more than a year, which is kind of
Yeah,
amazing. If Nintendo could start pumping out these new ideas and release them, get them together in a year. I mean, one of the comments said the way the Splatoon was put together is that they went ahead and had developers come up with new ideas for a new franchise, and they come up with 70 ideas, and this was just one
yeah,
that was selected out of 70. Man, if
yeah,
they could take two of those every year and create a game within a year um, that is as good as Splatoon. That's just a new concept. Man, that'd be amazing because they could, maybe two or three out of every four would be a failure, but you strike gold with that one, and you have a good franchise on your hands. If they
yeah. Like
find,
they bet on Codename Steam, it didn't pan out so well. They bet on Splatoon, and it really paid off.
yeah,
Also, although Splatoon did have like a crap ton more marketing than Codename Steam, but still, I didn't think Splatoon would have sold as well as it has.
yeah, man, and if Lifetime that game sells 2.5 million units, that's what like over $100 million in revenue. I think that paid for Codename Steam right there. Like,
Yeah,
I can't imagine that game cost more than $10-20 million to make. So
yeah. Well, hopefully, after Nintendo sees the success of Splatoon, they'll like if they make a new IP, they'll put a little more time into it, or at least with the Splatoon sequel, because they'll realize, oh, okay, people really like this. Let's not kind of rush it out quickly. Let's put a bit more time into
yeah,
it,
yeah, yeah,
because they
absolutely,
probably didn't realize if it would take off, so they didn't want to bet too hard on it.
yeah, absolutely. Here's some news that Mike would have probably liked. Shovel Knight is coming to retail for $20. Still has not bought that game, but man, maybe this will.
But now he will,
Yeah,
because it's
well,
physical.
for only $5 more, you can get a box and a disc.
I'm surprised that the physical edition is only $20, because like the game itself on eShop is like what 15.
Yeah,
So I would think it would cost more than $5 for them to make physical versions with publishing and
it probably does. I think it
all that stuff.
costs. Well, they still pay the same licensing fee to Nintendo either way.
Yeah,
And in fact, I think they might actually pay like 20 or 30% to Nintendo when they do it digitally, as opposed to just 10% when it's physical. So if they give like $5 to the retailer, and then $2 to Nintendo, it'll probably come out to about the same amount in the end. Maybe they're a dollar or two short, but I think it's okay. It's a cool thing to put together. They some Dragon Quest news. First of all, Dragon Quest 7 and 8 looks like likely will come to the West. There's been some very like lost in translation discussion. There was an interview that the director of Dragon Quest did while he was in France. That was translated to French, which was then translated to English. So we're not really sure, but either number one, Square is looking strongly at bringing them to the U.S., or B, they are coming to the U.S. So we don't really know. But one of these other news is that he said that if Dragon Quest Heroes sells well, then there will probably be more North American ports. So it seems like Square Enix is strongly teasing the 3DS versions of 7 and 8 to come over to the U.S. Um,
I wonder how many more different spin-offs of Samurai Warriors there are going to be, because it's Hyrule Warriors, and then Dragon Quest Heroes is basically
mm,
whatever Samurai Warriors again with different characters. So I wonder
well,
what other variations they'll have.
well, they sell well. Hyrule Warriors sold more than 1 million units. They're
Yeah,
doing well. Um, Dragon Quest 11 will be a traditional offline Dragon Quest game, which I guess is pretty good. It's been in development for literally ages and ages and ages. I think since 9 launched, which was, 5 years ago?
what about 10?
Or
Did
10,
Ashes
10.
launch?
Oh, yeah, 10
Oh
launch.
yeah,
Since 10 launched, which I guess was 2 or 3 years ago. They have released, I think, expansion packs for Dragon Quest X, but they announced Dragon Quest XI at least 2 years ago. Just offhand remark or something. So Nintendo's going to be at San Diego Comic-Con. They're going to have various tournaments. If you're there, you can play Super Mario Maker, Yoshi's Woolly World, Skylanders, Zelda, which I strongly recommend. Try Zelda, and then Chibi Robo. Some other news here.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting that they're having games that they just showed off at E3, like at San Diego. Like I don't remember them showing off new games and then having them playable to the public that quickly before.
I think they may have done it last year. I think last year they had 1 or 2 games. Plus, they had a Smash 3DS tournament, I think, if I remember correctly. And then, of course, there's going to be a Gamescom, so the public can play their games there, too, which is good. I guess they're opening it up. Xenoblade Chronicles X hopes to focus more on his story in the next game. Good for him. There was actually a lot of stuff. There was an interview that came out on things he recognized that he wants to do in the next game, and they're already working on the next game. They announced. We don't really know what it is. Who knows? This little piece of news here, I didn't see. It's about Ubisoft that you left in here. Apparently, Ubisoft studios can create low-cost games without executive approval. I did not read that. That is actually really nice to hear. Thanks for pulling that in.
I haven't read it either, but I thought it was cool to see.
Yeah, I guess that's stuff like Child of Light or Valiant Hearts. Like, they don't need to get executive approval.
Gone Home, or not Gone Home, Grow Home.
Grow Home, yeah. I guess they can just make it, which is amazing. I love Ubisoft, and they're very honest about the way they want to make money. We release Assassin's Creed every year because people buy it. So yeah, I love their honesty, but also they're willing to splurge on those small titles. Which is really cool.
It's nice to see like a big company who does make franchises so often be like, yeah, we have a team once in a while, like do something different, have their creative juices flow out for once.
Yeah. One other piece of news is that Iwata talked about the new loyalty program that'll launch before the end of this year. He said that they're really seriously looking at giving discounts digitally to those that are like devout, loyal people to the console, which is cool. Unfortunately, I don't think Nintendo knows what that means to give good digital discounts, because they talked about, so there was a question at the investors meeting and it said, why aren't digital games cheaper than physical titles? And what they said is that in Japan, physical titles are actually cheaper because retailers will discount them. And they said they don't want to devalue their titles, so that's why they'll make digital the same price or even more expensive, which I think is BS.
That's just terrible. To cover up for saying we can get away with it, so suck it.
Yeah, and man, if it ends up being like buy 2 titles, get one $5 off, I will be pissed off because I have Gamers Club Unlocked at Best Buy. I pay $15 a year to get 20% off of games. I literally have to buy one game and I'm almost break even. So I buy a $60 game for $48 at Best Buy. I'm not going to buy digitally, Nintendo. I'm sorry. As loyal as a fan as I am, I'm not going to buy digitally if it's only $5 off.
Yeah, and honestly, if they have to do a bundle where you get money off if you buy X game, that's literally worse than their digital deluxe program, which at least you got points for buying games and then you can spend it wherever the heck you want.
Yeah, the one positive.
I mean, that wasn't that great either because you still had to spend $60 to get 5 or 10 or something. I forget what it was, but yeah, that wasn't great either.
Now, to be fair, we have had good loyalty discounts in the past. You looking at the most recent example, which is this Nindies at Home program. You get I think
that's great.
20% off a digital game if you played ahead of launch. That would be great if we could play a beta and then or even Splatoon, I think they gave you $6 off, or $10 off. Don't remember. $6 or $10 off. The title download digitally if you played the demo. That's just something I guess they gave people if they tried it out. I think that's cool. Something else they did, if you remember, when Mario Kart launched, you'd get 1 of 4 games for free.
Oh yeah. Well, that's because the Wii was selling poorly, so they had to sell it.
Yeah, but that was an excellent promotion. Another one, if you remember, if you bought Shin Megami Tensei 4 and Fire Emblem, you'd get $30 back in credit, which
Oh yeah,
I
for
think
sure.
is the best deal they did because you'd pay $90 to get both of those games. Because Shin Megami Tensei was 50, but it came with a CD, and then Fire Emblem was 40, and you get $30. That's 30% back. That
Yeah,
is amazing. 33% back, in fact. So, I think that sort of deal, or if you bought two games and got 40% off, 30% off, I think that'd be excellent. So,
yeah,
there are good ways to go about it, and there are bad ways to go about it.
yeah. I hope they can find a way that doesn't involve you have to buy every game digitally because I'm not going to do that. And
A lot of
I
people
don't know.
won't.
I just hate that. It's like buy games digitally, even though it costs the same price, and there's no harm to us, but you still have to charge the same amount. It's like, well, no, thanks. Like the last like 3 years, Best Buy and Amazon have done this deal in Canada only, where if you buy like two games, you get 20% off, and if you get three or more, you get 30% off for any game like whatever games are announced at E3, you can pre-order them and then get that percent off. So I literally pre-ordered like I don't know 14 games just so I could have the the discount if I want it. And then because Amazon, I don't have to pay until it actually ships. So if I don't have money for it, I can just cancel that one game as it comes out. And I only pre-ordered like 3 Wii U games, and the other were PS4s, like 10 of them, and I don't have a PS4. So I basically just hoarded it just so I could get like that sale. And that was like a 1 week sale. So
Mm-hmm.
Nintendo's gonna have to do something good if they expect people to just
They gotta
go
beat
for the thing without,
retailers.
oh, here's $5 back. Okay, well, then I don't care.
Yeah, they've got to compete with retailers, quite honestly, and
Yeah.
you
I
know,
don't know how they're gonna do a loyalty program that like rewards fans if the fans always have to buy digital. Because then you're not rewarding the fans; you're just rewarding people who buy digitally.
although who knows, maybe it'll be Club Nintendo. You got rewarded if you bought physical. Maybe there'll be codes. Who knows? Um, and when it came to that Shin Megami Tensei Fire Emblem promotion, it was Club Nintendo codes. You could buy two physical games and still get the $30 back. So
Yeah,
we'll see. I think it's very interesting. I'm hoping they do something unique. I'm hoping they introduce some sort of like achievement system that maybe not a standard achievement system since a lot of Nintendo fans are really butthurt about that sort of thing. But some sort of achievement system that would go across smartphone and NX and Wii U and 3DS or whatever, because they said they wouldn't ditch the Wii U and 3DS for the NX, which I think is BS.
yeah,
But
it is.
uh, I
They
think
said
it,
that the last like several years. They
yeah.
launch one game after the new console is out, and then it's dead.
Yeah. Well, what was that for the Wii U? I think they launched The Last Story or something. It was like
Yeah, it was
one.
basically that or Zelda.
Yeah. So, oh well. I think we had a good podcast. We can
Yeah.
finish up with our plugs. So I am Eli. Paula Salon on my IGN, Paula Salon on Twitter, Nintendo Network 64 on YouTube. I will get back to making videos soon, hopefully. Check out my rating on NintendoEnthusiast.com and our newly launched XboxEnthusiast.com. Yeah. All right, Matt, what about you?
All right, I am the Mango Viking on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube.
All right, thanks so much for joining me. We had a very intimate podcast of two. Thanks everyone for listening. I really appreciate it, and we'll see you guys next week.
Stop coming on to me, Eli.
Woo!